standoffish judgment or something like that. I try to be available with compassion and respect and presence. Even if it's a space that I've been before, because it's maybe a family alignment that I have to do, because I have removed a lot of different alignments, including family alignments. And yet there are some where, you can't just remove them all. I mean, you could, but it's a choice on my part. I choose not to remove them all. I choose to still have those spaces, but I've set the boundaries to be as healthy as possible. Does that make sense? When I'm in those alignments, I'm doing my best to hold that presence of the I am. And we're talking about Christmas in some ways, right? It's Christmas Day when this is released. And that I am for me is the space of Jesus, Yeshua, the I am, Christ consciousness that I expanded my being into and my understanding into alignment with, and as I grew and as I spiritually awakened. Hello, welcome to this space. So Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad. If this is for you in some way or another, Christmas Day, this is being filmed, this episode, this podcast space is being created on Christmas Day. So I just thought, wow, how beautiful the opportunity for those who are catching this live or like upon immediate release, right? Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Best wishes to you and to your family, to your friends, to your space of it all. So here's a fun topic. Let's do it. Christmas. Wow, there's so much we could talk about with the understanding of Christmas. There's the navigation of family spaces, or the navigation of not having any family at Christmas, or a loved one's no longer with us, and it feels like it's more difficult to navigate that at the holiday, during the holiday. That's one topic that is absolutely, I'm sure, being experienced by many right now as the holiday is unfolding. And my knowing, my insight on this is allow best you can, allow at the greatest level possible for you, the greatest amount possible for you. Allow yourself to lean into the trust, the faith, the knowing that's inside your being, your soul, that you're surrounded by love. So whether the loved one is no longer in the physical with you, you're surrounded by love. Whether you're all alone and you have no one to spend Christmas with until I showed up, you're still surrounded by love. Whether things are easy or whether things are hard, you're surrounded by love. However this space, this Christmas, this holiday looks for you, and maybe you don't even celebrate Christmas, you're surrounded by love. When you can't see it, it's still there. Your trust level is your allowance for it to open up further. Your trust level and your faith is the activation source of that sensation, that experience, that knowing of being surrounded by love, no matter what the space is doing or looking like. You're the activator of it through your faith. It's so easy. I know it's so easy to believe what you are immediately seeing or experiencing in the reflection of the world around you. And it's really easy to feel the depths of that sorrow or that loneliness or that loss or that pain or that fear or that anxiety or whatever's coming in based on what you're experiencing. That's absolutely normal. It's the go-to reactive state of the human. But inside that human is also a very powerful, more powerful space of engagement that is anchored within your essence. That is that faith alignment, that trust alignment, that allowance alignment that says, I am surrounded by love. I'm having a now. It looks a certain way and feels a certain way, but even so, I'm surrounded by love. That availability on your part activates that love to flood in, to show up, and to be more present than ever before. So don't lose sight of that, please. Another space of Christmas can be navigating family events. And maybe you're awakened. If you listen to me, I'm guessing you are. So you have an awareness about you of who you are as consciousness and as a soul inside a human vessel having a now. And many of your family members may not be in that same type of mindset as you. Some of them may be really religious and they might see your mindset as detrimental and you're going to go to hell or something like that. And then some of them might be in a different alignment than you politically. That's a big one for a lot of people, right? Some of them might be in a space in which they still treat you and act like you're that person you were 20 years ago. And so you're maybe preparing to go to a family event or a gathering of some kind in which these are all possibilities. These are all spaces that may occur, could unfold. And at that space of alignment, if that's you, you're surrounded by love. You've designed it all. Whatever the conversations end up being, and however you feel as you're having them, it's your design. You're not a victim. You're a master, and you're mastering your understanding of yourself and the world around you. And as you're doing it, you're surrounded by love. Doesn't mean that it's going to make it easier. I understand that. You still have to navigate the feelings, and they may be frustrating or worrisome, or even anger could come in as well. Just allow best you can. Just allow the space as best you can and be more of an observer and interpret from a space of a visitor. That helps me a lot. So when I go into a space that I don't really want to be at, because maybe it's running spaces of a life I no longer live, and life I no longer identify with or as, but I know I need to go for one or whatever reason. And I have set a lot of boundaries and I have placed a lot of limits on how accessible I am to other spaces, other people. But there are certain spaces that I still need to take care of in one way or another. So I think you relate. And in that instance, in those spaces, I do my best to observe and hold a mindset best I can of that's interesting. It's a less judgmental space of coming in at. And so the person that I'm with or the people that I'm with, they might say something that I don't agree with or that I haven't said in 20 years, but it's the core of where they're at right now. So I hold this observership as if I'm visiting. I'm visiting the planet. I'm visiting this species, and this is how they speak, and this is how they believe, and this is how they live. And I observe and I glean understandings of where this type of mindset might come from. Maybe they're afraid. maybe they're judging themselves, maybe they're having an issue with being authentic. But I don't observe to judge, I observe to learn. There are many, many lessons in our interactive field around us if we will be available, if we will be present enough to observe the space and process what we're observing without attachment or judgment of what it is or how it's going. So I do that a lot when I have a space that I need to navigate that may not be on the top of my yippee list. I go into observer mode and I allow myself to learn. And I do my best to hold compassion and kindness for those around me so that my energy is leaving goodness in the space and not any type of egoic conceit or standoffish judgment or something like that. I try to be available with compassion and respect and presence. Even if it's a space that I've been before, because it's maybe a family alignment that I have to do, because I have removed a lot of different alignments, including family alignments. And yet there are some where, you can't just remove them all. I mean, you could, but it's a choice on my part. I choose not to remove them all. I choose to still have those spaces, but I've set the boundaries to be as healthy as possible. Does that make sense? So when I'm in those alignments, I'm doing my best to hold that presence of the I am. And we're talking about Christmas in some ways, right? It's Christmas Day when this is released. And that I am for me is the space of Jesus, Yeshua, the I am, Christ consciousness that I expanded my being into and my understanding into alignment with, and as I grew and as I spiritually awakened. I used to have very different views of Christmas and very different views of Jesus and the holiday. And one year, I'll tell you a funny story. Oh, I did so many things, but let's limit it to a little bit here for the sake of time. One year at Christmas, I got a bunch of shirt boxes. They were all exactly the same size. The box you put a shirt in, it's like an inch high or inch and a half high, and it's like an 8x10 or something, right? So I got a bunch of shirt boxes, one for each person in my family that was going to be at this family Christmas. They were all exactly the same. And then I placed inside the box tissue, beautiful tissue paper. It was like colored red or green. It took a lot of time and effort to try to make it as beautiful as possible. The paper was specifically chosen. I put one item, it was the same item across the board, one item in each box. And I actually secured it with tape in a hidden way. So it looked really pretty. When you opened the box, it hadn't moved, and you could open the tissue paper and there would be this one item, this one gift. And everybody was getting the same thing. So I wrapped up all of the packages. I think there was probably 12 of them in all. It was a big family Christmas that year. And I placed them all under the tree. And then when it got time to give out the Christmas gifts, I was so excited, so excited. So I went around the room, I picked them all up from under the tree, and then I went around the room and I handed one to each person in my family, and they were all seated, in a like semicircle around the room. And I said, wait, don't open them until everybody gets theirs in their lap, and then everybody do it together, okay? And so they all agreed, they laughed, they thought it was funny. I was always doing really big, showy things, creating different types of moments that always had a little more flair to them. So they were pretty used to it. So then everybody had their package on their lap, and we began the space. And I said, okay, go ahead, open your gifts. So I said, when you get the paper off, stop for just a second. Let me tell you one thing before you open the box. They said, okay. So they undid the wrapping paper. Now everybody's down to just the box. And I said, okay, now before you open this gift that I'm giving to you, I want to tell you a little something about it, because it's very important to understand the gift. They said, okay, what is it? What is it? So they're all looking at me, holding their boxes, ready to open them at any moment. And I said, when you open the gift, I need you to look at it for just a moment, like just really look at the gift for just a moment. Okay? Okay. So they all start opening the boxes, pulling back the tissue paper, and there's that one item that every single one of them got that was securely fastened in each box so it wouldn't move and it would be perfectly placed so that they could lift the box and look at it and it wouldn't fall or anything. And so all of a sudden they're all coming to that point where they're looking at this object that's in this box and they're pausing. They're doing what I asked. They're looking at it and they're pausing and they're allowing that space. And then I could see they were a little puzzled, like some of them more than others. What are we looking at? Why is this item in this box? And I said, what you see right now is the greatest gift you could ever give to Jesus. And it's his birthday, right? Christmas is supposed to be Jesus is the reason for the season. This is that space I was in, right? So I said, what you see in the mirror right now is the gift you could give Jesus. In the mirror, I gave it away. So that's what was in the box. That's what was in the box. I had wrapped up these little rectangular mirrors. They were probably like 5 by 7 or something, you know. And so when they opened the box and they pulled the paper back and looked at what was in the box, they saw themselves. They saw the reflection of their own face. And then I said, that's what would be the greatest gift you could give Jesus. So I always remembered that Christmas, like over the top. There goes Andrea. I was always doing stuff like that, always doing stuff like that. And that was a time in my life where I felt like at that point, people didn't get Jesus. They didn't understand Jesus and they didn't understand his teachings. And they were getting caught up and lost in judgment and fear and hell and all of these other spaces that are in the theologies and in the dogmas, but they weren't listening to the words of Jesus, you know, and how simplistic it was. But I still didn't have the understanding that I have now. I went through a really big period, several years with Christmas that was very, very difficult. For probably 2 or 3 years, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go to any Christmas events. I didn't want to get a tree. I didn't want to put any decorations up. I didn't want to give any presents. I didn't want to receive any presents. I did it. I did it all because I had kids, I had a family, and just because I had made these really huge life-changing choices, it really wasn't fair for me to drag everybody with me. So I did it all, but it was really awkward and it was really difficult and it felt yucky in a lot of spaces. It felt really uncomfortable. But I was changing, I was growing, and I was moving through a space of myself that I could not have explained to anybody else truly, completely. And now looking back at it, I do have a better understanding of what was happening to me. But I can remember just being like, it's all been, you know, a lie. Like he wasn't even born in December. If the man existed as this Christ figure, this Jesus figure, he most likely was born in the summertime. They placed it on a pagan holiday or a pagan ritual or pagan space, as they did with all the spaces that I'm aware of in the religious calendar, so that they could control the people. And I've even heard, at that point, I had heard teachings about how that's how we ended up with all these saints, like um, in many of the Catholic churches. There are a lot of statues and plaques dedicated to, and arts dedicated to specific saints. And I had heard somebody teach on, or several people talk about, how they placed those over the pagan gods because they needed to do something with them. They needed to redirect the people's focus to something that they could control more. And so a lot of that came from that control being initiated by the church. So I had heard all of that, and I was and I really just felt like what Jesus brought, the man, the being, which I'll go into what I think he is now if you want, but let me just speak from where I was coming from then. I felt then that what Jesus brought to the world and to humanity was very misunderstood and was very misrepresented. And it was distorted, and it had been twisted up to provide control and feed greed. And it wasn't that it was all bad or all wrong or all distorted. There were a lot of really good people and good preachers and good, you know, people of the faith, that their hearts were in that alignment of what Jesus was all about. But the majority of it was not what Jesus was all about. And for a little bit, it brought a space to me in which I had to figure out how to pray again, or if I ever wanted to pray again. I had to find my way to the origin of a God or source space outside of the distortions of religion, because I had woken up. I had seen too much. I had heard too much. I had realized too much to stay in that alignment any longer. So it was a really big thing. Like, Christmas got weird for me for a couple of years. Praying was odd, difficult for a couple of years. I had to figure out, how do you pray? Why do you pray? Who are you praying to? If you've realized it's one consciousness, if you realize there's no separation. And I was even able to then take the teachings of Jesus to back up and confirm my new belief structure. So I wasn't even losing Jesus along the way, or the teachings of Christ. I was actually amplifying them and expanding them, because they actually made more sense in alignment with the way my mind was thinking as it was expanding. I used to hear the verse, I and the Father are one. And I know that the traditional teaching is that that is because it's a Godhead, it's a Trinity, it's a Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one God, right? But I remembered the verse as well. Along with that verse, I remembered, I am the head and you are the body. And I thought to myself, well, the head cannot live without the body, and the body cannot live without the head. It's all one. It's all one. So the verses that stuck out to me a lot started confirming my expanded consciousness understandings. And so that was really beautiful, because a lot of times I think there's a space where, and I visited it a little bit, where people can almost kind of lose their religion, because they are finding themselves so far away from the teachings that have been given to them. And they know within their being and in their heart that it doesn't feel right. Something's wrong, something's off. And so a lot of the times they just completely shut down and turn away. And so somebody listening to me right now, Christmas could be this way for you right now, right? And it's all part of the journey. It's all part of the design. Nothing's wrong or off or bad. It's all part of the process of the expansion of the being, the understanding of yourself changing, the understanding of the world around you changing, and you adapting to that change and learning how to implement and process that change in you, as you, in your life. So increments are important. Being patient and compassionate with yourself is important. Allowing the space is important. Trusting the process is important. And remembering at all times, no matter what you feel or think or find yourself saying or doing, you're surrounded by love. You're surrounded by love. And as that journey unfolds and you continue to expand and shift and change and learn and grow, you find your way back into yourself, but it's a new level of you. And so when you consider praying and what prayer is and who you're praying to, you find that you're able to do it again, but you realize it's not a ask and beg or plead and hope. It's a speaking into creation from a space of yourself that you understand you are as the I am, having a now, the one, within a variation point of the many. So when you pray and you are speaking, directing, with no attachment, with no fear, with no command in the sense of like, I'll show you, I command you to blah, blah, blah. It's not like that. It's like matter of fact. It's like completely in an alignment of, I know that I know that I know. It's coming from gratitude at a new level. It's coming from peace at a new level. It's coming from love at a new level. And prayer becomes a communication of, it's a simple yet profound conversation of you with you. And the way that I started seeing Christmas, it got to come back because I didn't really feel the triggers I used to feel. I had healed those spaces of separation and those spaces of judgment and attachment to judging everyone and everything. I'll show them this isn't real. This is wrong. They shouldn't do this. This is so blah, blah, blah. I had gripped it all so much. So I had to learn, and I allowed myself to do so, to let go of that grip and to be more allowing with all the spaces. And those that wanted to still see it very traditionally or very religiously, honoring and respecting them, to allow them to do so without me being a sourpuss about it. And me being able to run a level of peace and balance in my being as I navigated the holiday the way I wanted to do it, but still holding a space of sacred and divine love for those around me, that I was not in any way going to negate their memory, the spaces they were creating memories of, their Christmases, their holidays, their dinners, their gatherings. I was not going to do something that was going to be a space of reference in where there's a difficult memory or a sad memory or an empty memory. But I wanted to be a space. I chose to be a space of alignment and availability for a memory of love, for a memory of joy. When you give somebody a birthday gift, if you are a good gift giver, you will take into consideration what they like. I know we all have those gift givers in our families, in our circles, that they give you something and you're like, thank you. But you're thinking to yourself, what is this? Or why? Why? Like who? Really? So a great gift giver gives the gift they know the receiver would love, right? Why give somebody a gift you love if you know they're not into it? I love crystals. I have crystals all over my home. Majority of my family do not love crystals like I love crystals. I have plants. I love plants. I have them all over my home. The majority of my family does not love plants like I love plants. I have books. I love books. I have books all over my home. At least half my family does not love books as much as I love books. So when it's their celebration, their birthday, their Christmas time, I'm not going to give them something I want to have at the birthday or the Christmas. I'm going to give them something I know they would love to have. That's a good gift giver, isn't it? So that helped me a lot. I started looking at Christmas as a way I could give a gift to all my family, not because I wanted them to like me more, love me more, say, speak highly of me more, but because I honestly love them and I want to give them a gift that I know they would enjoy. And that is a beautiful Christmas. They love Christmas. They love decorating. I do not. They love all the little figurines and little things in the yard and wreaths on the door. I used to love it a long time ago, but then I just moved into a space of myself where it really just wasn't my thing anymore, And when I didn't do it, I saw that it dampened, in a sense, their Christmas experience because we're very close and they enjoy the space so much. It's almost like, okay, here's another example. Have you ever gone out to eat with somebody and they're on a diet and they can't eat very much, or they have to be very, very particular about what they order? It's not as fun, is it? I know, I've been both sides of this coin. I've been the person with the friend or family member on a diet and they can't eat anything and they have to order like a really, really boring, strict meal. And I've been the person ordering the really boring, boring, strict meal. It's just not as fun. It's just not. So that's like another example. I'm able to look at it that way. When the holidays come around, even if they're not my fun point, right? They're not the space where I'm like, a lot of people, they love the holidays. They start decorating in October or something, right? And it's not that I don't love them. It's just not my thing. It's just not top of my list. Does that make sense? So, but I realized I can see it as a gift to my family, the ones that do love it, and the ones that don't even love it that much either. They're like, could take it or leave it, decorating and all of that, big dinner and all of that. They still get a kick out of seeing the joy in the faces of the ones that do love it, experiencing that space and being happy. And so when I allow and I decorate and I jazz myself up and I show up and I enjoy the space. I allow the space. I embrace the space for what the space is. All the people that are there, whether they're super into it or not, they're all happier just because I'm bringing happiness. My gift is happiness, not I don't do this anymore. This is such a lie. This is so sick. People don't have stuff and you're giving stuff to each other. I said it all. I said it all at one time or another, but I don't say it anymore. Oh, it's so freeing. It's so beautiful. It's so nice to be in a space of my being where, oh, I'm at peace. I am so balanced. I have so much peace. I don't need to grip any of it. I hold no attachment to any of it. I do have pretty strict boundaries, and I do only go to specific event spaces that I either feel is very necessary for me to go to for one reason or another, or I go because I really do love the space. But I used to go to like everything I got invited to. I used to go to everything anybody was doing and having. And I was like just burnt out. I did not want to have to continue to act like I was happy in all those spaces. It was just, it wasn't, it wasn't healthy, right? But the spaces I chose to allow myself to lean in and play a role in a sense, those spaces are the closest spaces to me, and they love me. They love me so richly, so deeply, so completely. And they know it's not my favorite thing. And they see me leaning in for them and giving them the gift that would most make them joyful and happy. And it means even more to them. They're like, wow, wow, she showed up. She showed up and then some. So, wherever you're at with the Christmas holiday, with the Christmas concept, I know for a long time I was like, Christmas got hijacked. It's not even what Christmas initially was about. And then for a long time, I lived in a space where I thought Christmas was always about Santa Claus and presents and little kids and Christmas trees and Christmas morning. And then I lived in a space where I didn't want to have anything to do with any of it because I thought it was all just so gross. I will use this word. I used to think it was gross for a little bit. I felt it was gross because so many people didn't have enough. And then I moved into a space of realizing how important the mastery of my energy is. And that even if there is sorrow, if I sink into sorrow, I'm amplifying the sorrow. Even if there is lack, if I sink into lack to honor that lack, now I have amplified that lack. But if I choose joy when there is sorrow, I'm amplifying joy, and joy is now available more to those that are having issues and in sorrow. It's more available as a whole in the collective. And if I'm choosing grateful or happy or peace or balance, even when there's chaos and war and poverty and pain, I am amplifying gratitude and joy and peace and balance. Whatever we tap into and we run as our flow state, we're amplifying. So people that say, well, you should feel guilty for celebrating Christmas when there's some that have none. Well, then you're just amplifying that space of the none continuing to perpetuate itself more, show up more for more people, and to become more prominent. Whatever you're focusing your energy on, your thoughts on, your beliefs on, and you're leaning into and feeling from as an if, you're broadcasting that through the collective field. And that's available as a possibility. So, amplifying the sadness and the sorrow because it makes you feel better to stand in unity with them is like finding somebody that is fallen into a well and they're unable to climb out and jumping in with them. Yeah, that's what it's like. You want to get them out of the well? Then be joyful. You want to get them out of the well? Be peace, be balanced, be happy, have a good life. Live your life to the fullest. Embrace it with everything you have. And that's like throwing a rope down into the well for the people that have nothing and getting them out of the well. I know this is going to be a big one for some people to get, but this is how energy works. Whatever you focus on expands. So if you keep focusing on all the brokenness and the war and the pain and the sorrow, and you hold solidarity with it because that makes you a good person, then you're just amplifying that to continue to flow. You want it to stop flowing, you want it to shift, you want it to heal, you want everything to move into a new alignment, a new earth, a new frequency, a new flow, then hold the flow of the new. Hold the flow of peace, hold the flow of joy, hold the flow of gratitude, hold the flow of abundance. That's how it gets to show up. It has to start showing up somewhere. Be an anchor point of that alignment. These are my takes on Christmas. These are my spaces. I kind of, shortened it down a bit, gave you a little bit of a peek into different spaces of how I've navigated Christmas. There was a point in time prior to the mirror story. There was a point in time where I was very materialistic. I wanted to buy everybody the most expensive gift I could possibly afford. I didn't care if I went into debt. And I did go into debt those years. And I would wrap it in the most beautiful incredible paper, like thick paper, fancy paper, bows, little ornaments I would buy to hook onto the bow. It looked like it was wrapped in like Macy's, or we used to have a store called Birdines. It became Macy's later on. When I lived in South Florida, we used to have Birdines, and they had a wrapping paper section. Loved that experience as a child. Every box was pre-wrapped with different bows, different paper, different little, always had a little toy or a little ornament or some type of little guy hanging on that bow, right? Really cool little thing. And they were all on the wall, and they were all numbered. And there was like at least 20, maybe even 30 different choices. And then two ladies always worked the counter. And after my mom would get done buying gifts, we would go. Birthday, anniversary, Christmas, just because, didn't matter. You bought a gift, you take your receipt, you take your item, you go to the gift wrap ladies, and sometimes you had to pay a couple bucks, sometimes it was a free wrap, but they would wrap your items. They might still do it. I don't know. I just don't even do this anymore, but that was such a cool memory as a kid. I loved it. Was almost like picking out a birthday cake when mom would take you to Publix and let you look at the like the spiral or like the 3-ring notebook that they have. Anybody been there? And then you get to like flip through and pick your cake. It was almost like that kind of memory, picking the wrapping paper. And I used to look at all the little extras, like the little toy or the little ornament that they would dangle from the bow. And I would always be like, oh, let's get him that one. Let's get number 14. Let's get number 8. You know, it was such a fun thing to do. But I was very materialistic in probably my early 20s. And I just was really into trying to always buy the biggest, the nicest, stuff for everybody and for myself. And that was another type of connection with Christmas that I held, a very materialistic based connection with Christmas. And then I had a very religious based connection with Christmas. And then I had a space in which I wanted no connection with Christmas. And I thought it was appalling. And then I went into a space of peace. I went into a space of balance. And I realized that there was so much more available in the spaces that I was experiencing than continuing to run any of the alignments I had already been. But there was something new that could show up if I chose to be new when I showed up. And so now I'm like seeing Christmas through the eyes of my children who are now grown adults. And I'm watching them get their first Christmas trees, and I'm watching them decorate their first homes with their lights and their garland. And I'm watching my first grandchild um, hold awe and wonder for the beauty of the lights that are on the tree that they have no idea what any of it stands for. They're just solely seeing and completely connecting in with the awe and wonder, the beauty. There's beauty and there's awe and there's wonder in every space, even the spaces that are dark and difficult and daunting. There's some love somewhere, even if it is within your own heart and around you in your team of light, around you in the unseen. There's so many unseen beings around us 24/7. They're not judging us. So many people get in their heads about that when I talk about that, and they're like, oh, so they see me when I do this and they see me when I do that. They do not process and function from that mindset at all. That's just not the way they process. But they're always there. You're always surrounded by love. And they can't force anybody to do anything or change anything for anybody, but they are supportive in the most beneficial way for us. So if they did everything and made everything move and change uh, a certain way in a certain time frame, we would never grow. We would never learn. We would never stretch. We would never change. And sometimes we're a point of reference for somebody else, and what we're going through and what we're dealing with is important for not only our story, but for somebody else's story, like a child who's watching us, or a parent who's watching us, or a sibling, or a partner, or whoever, a friend. And we say, well, why would I design this story? Why would I design this difficulty? Why would I design this space? And maybe it's not even about you. Maybe you agreed to be it so somebody else near you could learn whatever they're learning by watching you overcome it, by watching you rise above it, by watching you navigate through it and finding more of yourself, trusting more of yourself, allowing more of yourself. So as you navigate your experiences and wherever they are, however they're unfolding, and if this by any chance is your Christmas, just remember to look for the love surrounding you through your intention, through your thoughts, through your actions. And then that love that is surrounding you has the opportunity to expand. So thank you for being this space with me. Thank you for being this space with me. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I have big thoughts on New Year's as well. For me, it's in April. We'll have another podcast about that. All right. I will talk to you again soon. See you next time. Bye bye.